Ho ho ho, and welcome to another day here on TryHackMe. Today we're going to talk about the Advent of Cyber, of course. It's day number 9. It's called 9 o'clock, make GRC fun, tell no one. So we're going to learn about the introduction to GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance. The three main concepts that are very important in the role of how to govern and to control your risks and make sure that you get your compliance mark, or the to be compliant it is called. Now, all of this is very important in organizations, and today we're going to talk about this GRC. So let's take some example. Let's look at some examples in the financial sector. Reserve bank regulations. Most countries, banks have to adhere to the security regulations set forth the country's reserve bank. This ensures that each bank adheres to a minimum security level to protect the funds and information of their customers, which makes great sense. The SWIFT CPS. Banks use the SWIFT network to communicate with each other and send funds. After a massive bank breach resulted in 81 million fraudulent SWIFT transfer. SWIFT, created by the Customer Security Program (CSP), which sets the standard for security for banks to connect to the SWIFT network. Data protection. As banks hold sensitive information about their customers, they have to adhere to the security standards created by the data regulator, usually the Reserve Bank in most countries. So, when you run a large organization with multiple different teams, how do you stay on the top of those regulations? Well, this is where the GRC comes in. They play a crucial role in understanding external security standards, translating them into internal standards, and then ensuring that they are applied by all the teams to help reduce organization's risk to an acceptable level. Let's take a quick look at the three functions of GRC. Now, the governance is in more like decisions regarding information security. So this is where you're gonna make sure all the security strategies, policies, standards, and best practices and so on is a part of the overall goal. The risk is about the identity, assess, quantify, and mitigation of stuff, of the assets inside the organization. And the compliance is basically just something you have to adhere to, for example, GDPR law or some NIST or ISO 27001. So if you follow the rules, some company can go to your company, and then they can figure out whether you follow the rules strict enough to get yourself a compliance mark. So why are the risk assessments done? Well, it's to minimize business risk. In other words, and performing a risk assessment, there's many ways to do that, and they do show one image here. They talk about like the risk number, the name, description of risk, last updated, likelihood of realization, impact if realized, risk store, and risk owner. In most occasions, the score is a product of the two. So it's the product of the two. So there is some sort of level that you have to pay attention to. It's an okay scheme, this one, and it's a great way to get the overall understanding of how it works. Identification of risk. To assess risk, we must first identify the factors that can cause revenue or reputation loss resulting from cyber threats. Exercise requires carefully assessing the attack surface of organization, identifying areas which might be used to harm the organization. Examples of identified risk can be unpatched web server, high privilege user account without proper security controls, and so on. Now, talking about all of this, I can free roam this, in order to, set the likelihood, you basically need to understand, why it's like improbable, remote, occasional, probable, or frequent. It's a difficult thing to, just say, but this is not so much about we understand what does it mean, like occasionally, likely to happen once, sometime, like, but what does it mean? When is that? How do you come to that conclusion? It's not the video where we talk about that, but I just want to put a few words to it. Is we need to understand what the different, levels mean, 1 to 5. So that's really the thing for now. The impact is a little easier to understand because we can just look at our own systems. It would kind of require for example, if it's a technical breach, then a sysadmin or some technical employees could tell, listen, if they can access this and that with this kind of breach, then this can happen and it's going to be kind of severe. So we're going to pick 1 to 5 here. The ownership is the guy creating the risk. So basically it can be the guy. So the internal and third-party risk assessment says it's not done internally it's not just done internally on the station, but can also be used to assess the risks that a third party may hold to our organization. Today, it's a very common thing to make use of third parties to outsource key functions to a business, which is of course very true. We have to create the same kind of risk assessments to the third party. Well, you need to, how can I say it? You need to be aware of your supply chain and who you're working with. They have to adhere to the same kind of risk assessment. This is what this is about. So in this particular event here, like, what does GRC stand for? And we got that up here. If you cannot spell it or some way, where did we find it? It was basically told to us right there. So let's take that as the answer of today. And how we need to receive the flag after performing the risk assessment. So let's go ahead and view the site. And so I decided to, after clicking on the game here a few times, to agree to disagree that this is a weird way of conducting a risk assessment. So I am sorry, but I just don't like this way. The 3 questions we need to answer is weird. And I did complete it. And we did get the flag, so I'm gonna copy paste the flag and paste it in just to complete the day. But I will now explain why I don't like this. The way they created this was you have to read this, and from that pick one of the 4 levels. In my eyes, I would probably never do it this way because it lacks a lot of conversation and stuff. So just for understanding how it's done, it's better than doing nothing. But apart from that, I'm definitely gonna say this is not the way that I would do it, not the way that I would teach it, but it is a start. I understand what they try to do in this room, but I feel it's kind of not done well. So anyways, we did it. I presented my critical opinion about it. It's okay, but I feel this room was a bit laggy, and overall, GRC was not really covered, and the game was weird. So yeah, but it's still Christmas time, so ho ho ho, and see you again tomorrow.